They surrounded him in broad daylight, accused him of stealing what he worked his entire life to earn. Phones came out, laughter followed, and before anyone could stop it, flames tore through a $400,000 car as it burned right in front of its owner. He didn't scream, he didn't fight back. He just stood there, calm, watching everything he built turn to ashes. But what no one there realized was this: one phone call was about to flip the power in that parking lot forever. And when the truth came out, every face went pale. So the question is, who really had the power that night? Comment and tell us where you're watching from, and subscribe for more powerful stories. Before that night, Jackson Bennett's life was defined by discipline, patience, and quiet achievement. At 28, he had built everything the hard way: long hours, relentless focus, and years of sacrifice that most people never saw. He wasn't chasing attention or validation. He valued structure, routine, and the satisfaction that came from earning every step forward. Success, for him, wasn't about showing off. It was proof that perseverance still mattered. That evening was supposed to be simple. Jackson pulled into an upscale shopping plaza just before sunset, planning to pick up a gift for his mother. The plaza was polished and busy, filled with glass storefronts, well-dressed shoppers, and the unspoken assumption that everyone there belonged. He parked his car carefully, stepped out calmly, and blended into the flow of people, confident, composed, unbothered. But confidence has a way of unsettling those who believe power is inherited, not earned. Across the plaza, a small group watched him closely. They noticed the car first, then they noticed him. Assumptions formed quickly: quiet, ugly, and familiar. Jackson didn't see them staring. He had no reason to. He had done nothing wrong. He was exactly where he was supposed to be. Inside the boutique, time slowed. The world felt normal. Human, respectful. For a moment, everything aligned with the life Jackson had worked so hard to create. But outside, resentment was growing. Jealousy mixed with entitlement, and boredom mixed with cruelty can turn dangerous fast. By the time Jackson walked back toward the parking lot, the atmosphere had shifted. The air felt heavier. The crowd felt closer. Eyes lingered longer than they should have. What had been an ordinary evening was quietly becoming something else, something volatile. Jackson had faced challenges before. He had navigated prejudice in subtle ways his entire life, but nothing prepared him for what was about to unfold in that parking lot. Because this wasn't just about suspicion or harassment anymore. This was about control, about humiliation, about sending a message. And within minutes, that message would be delivered in flames, forcing everyone watching to confront a truth they could no longer ignore. Jackson Bennett stepped back into the parking lot, unaware that the mood had shifted against him. What had been an ordinary space minutes earlier now felt charged, as if the air itself carried suspicion. He unlocked his car, the lights flashing briefly, a small action that drew far more attention than it should have. Eyes followed him, whispers spread, and before he could open the door, movement closed in around him. Derek Callahan and his friends approached with the confidence of men who had never been questioned in their lives. They didn't rush. They didn't need to. Power to them was assumed. Their presence alone began to attract a crowd: curious shoppers, bystanders sensing drama, phones already lifting instinctively. Jackson noticed the shift immediately. Years of experience had taught him to read rooms quickly. This wasn't curiosity, this was judgment. The accusations came fast, layered with sarcasm and entitlement. His paperwork was dismissed as suspicious. His calm was reframed as guilt. Every attempt he made to remain composed only fueled the narrative forming around him. To the crowd, the story was being written in real time, and Jackson had already been cast as the villain. Security arrived, but not as protection. Their attention went first to Derek, familiarity evident in their posture. Jackson was treated as an inconvenience, an interruption that needed managing. His documents were scrutinized, his movements restricted, his ownership questioned again and again. Logic no longer mattered, facts were optional, perception was everything. As the crowd grew, so did the confidence of those leading the confrontation. Derek's voice carried, theatrical and deliberate, designed for witnesses. His friends reinforced every claim with nods and staged concern. Each accusation stacked on the last, building a version of events that felt increasingly dangerous for Jackson. He understood what was happening. A story was being created where resistance would look like aggression and silence would look like admission. When police arrived, the imbalance deepened. Officer Mitchell didn't approach the scene neutrally. His posture shifted, authority sharpening as his gaze locked onto Jackson. Procedures slowed, questions multiplied. Time stretched in uncomfortable silence as Jackson was made to wait, surrounded by cameras and judgment. Every second increased the pressure, testing his restraint. The scrutiny escalated into humiliation. Jackson was examined, searched, tested, his dignity stripped layer by layer in front of strangers. He complied with everything, knowing that even justified frustration could be twisted against him. Still, it wasn't enough. His calm was reframed as defiance. His presence itself became the justification for further suspicion. Then the focus turned fully to the car. Derek circled it with mocking curiosity, invading the space with deliberate intent. When the first act of vandalism happened, it was small enough to be dismissed by those who wanted to look away. A scratch, an accident, they claimed. The crowd hesitated, unsure whether they had just witnessed a crime or a coincidence. That hesitation gave permission. What followed was no longer subtle. As Jackson stood restrained, powerless to intervene without consequences, Derek escalated openly. He moved with confidence, knowing the authority around him would hesitate. The moment stretched unbearably as liquid soaked into the interior, the smell sharp and unmistakable. Jackson's chest tightened. This wasn't intimidation anymore. This was destruction. When the fire started, it spread faster than anyone expected. Flames erupted violently, consuming the car in seconds. Heat pushed the crowd back, but cameras stayed raised. Laughter broke through the shock from those who felt untouchable. Jackson watched as years of sacrifice, discipline, and meaning disappeared in smoke and fire. He didn't scream. He didn't collapse. He stood still, absorbing the loss in silence. But beneath that silence, something shifted. As the flames climbed higher, Jackson reached into his pocket, not in panic but with precision. The crowd sensed it. The tone changed. The laughter faded, because this wasn't a moment of defeat. It was the calm before consequences, and the call he was about to make would expose far more than what burned in that parking lot. The fire consumed the car completely, flames roaring high enough to light the entire plaza. Heat pressed against the crowd, forcing people back, but no one looked away. What had started as harassment had now crossed into something irreversible. This was no longer intimidation. It was destruction, carried out openly, confidently, and without fear of consequences. Jackson Bennett stood restrained, watching the flames devour what he had worked years to earn. The car wasn't just metal and money. It was proof of discipline, sacrifice, and survival in a world that constantly questioned his right to succeed. And now it burned while laughter echoed behind him. Cameras captured every second, not to intervene, but to collect content. Authority figures hesitated. Their inaction spoke louder than words. No one rushed to stop the destruction. No one stepped between the fire and the man who had done nothing wrong. In that silence, the injustice became unmistakable. This was what power looked like when it believed itself untouchable. Then Jackson moved, not with panic, not with anger. With intention, he reached into his pocket slowly, deliberately, every movement controlled. The shift was subtle but immediate. The laughter faded. The energy changed. Those closest felt it first, an unease creeping in as they realized this moment wasn't ending the way they expected. Jackson made the call. He didn't raise his voice. He didn't explain himself to the crowd. He didn't argue. He simply stood there as the flames raged behind him, phone to his ear, posture steady. The contrast was striking. Chaos and calm existing side by side, power revealing itself quietly. Within moments, the reaction was visible. Officer Mitchell's posture changed. The confidence drained from his face, replaced by something closer to fear. He stepped back, suddenly unsure. Derek noticed it too. His expression shifted from smug satisfaction to confusion, then to disbelief. The certainty he had carried all night began to crack. When black SUVs rolled into the plaza, the illusion shattered completely. They arrived without sirens, without spectacle, but their presence commanded the space instantly. Doors opened in unison. Men in dark suits moved with precision, their focus sharp, their authority unquestioned. The crowd fell silent, phones lowered slightly, whispers spread. Then Jackson's father stepped forward. Jonathan Bennett didn't rush, he didn't raise his voice. He didn't need to, his presence alone changed everything. In seconds, the power dynamic flipped. The same people who had stood confidently moments earlier now struggled to stand at all. Reality settled in hard. This wasn't a random man. This wasn't a misunderstanding. This wasn't a moment that could be brushed aside. The truth was undeniable and humiliating for those who thought themselves above it. The fire still burned, but it no longer held the crowd's attention. All eyes were now on the men who had mistaken entitlement for authority and cruelty for control. Every accusation, every lie, every second of an action had been recorded, from multiple angles, from multiple devices, and from places they never expected. Jackson stood beside his father, the smoke rising behind them like a symbol of everything that had just been exposed. And as federal authority closed in, one truth became impossible to escape. The fire hadn't destroyed Jackson's life, it had exposed theirs. The fire was eventually put out, but the damage had already been done. What remained in that parking lot wasn't just twisted metal and smoke. It was the undeniable proof of how quickly power can be abused when prejudice goes unchecked. Jackson Bennett stood there long after the flames died, not broken, not defeated, but changed. The night had taken something from him, but it had also revealed something far bigger than one man's loss. The truth spread fast. Videos flooded the internet. The same footage meant to humiliate became evidence. The same crowd that watched in silence became witnesses. Within hours, consequences followed, real ones. Arrests were made, investigations launched, careers unraveled. What had once felt untouchable was suddenly exposed to the light. For Jackson, justice didn't erase the trauma. It didn't restore the years of sacrifice that burned in that fire. But it did something just as important. It shifted the narrative. His calm restraint, his refusal to become what they expected, forced the world to confront an uncomfortable truth. This wasn't about a misunderstanding. This was about a system that too often protects cruelty and punishes dignity. And that's why this story matters. Because Jackson had resources most people don't. Knowledge, influence, a voice that couldn't be ignored. But what about the countless others who faced the same suspicion, the same humiliation, the same danger? Without cameras, without witnesses, without power on the other end of the phone, their stories don't always end with accountability. Many never make headlines at all. This wasn't just a moment in one parking lot. It was a mirror held up to a society still struggling to see black success without suspicion. Still too comfortable watching injustice instead of stopping it. Still choosing silence over courage. Jackson walked away that night without his car, but with his dignity intact. The people who tried to strip it from him lost far more than they ever imagined. Their actions became a lesson, one they never intended to teach, but one the world needed to see. So the question isn't whether this could happen again. The real question is, when it does, who will you be? The one who looks away, or the one who stands up? If this story moved you, share it with someone who needs to hear it. And make sure you subscribe to Black Community Struggles for more powerful stories about justice, truth, and our community's fight to be seen. And don't forget to hit that like button. Your support helps these stories reach the people who need them most.